Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello everybody, it's Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive. And this is episode 25. If you would like to leave a comment, please feel free to leave a comment on the blog, which you can find at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can leave it on our group on Ravelry. If you'd like to introduce yourself on our group, there is an introductions thread, and there's also a thread called Joining In, which people seem to be using more preferentially for saying hello. But hello! And, those of you who've come over from the Knit More Girls, too, thank you. That was very sweet. You can add yourself to the Cognitive Listeners Map, and this link and all the links that I'm talking about for the rest of this podcast are in the show notes on Ravelry or on Blogspot. I also have a YouTube channel, informatively named Dr. Gemma, spelled out. And on that I have 1-minute flash tips about surviving in the pandemic, and also longer strategy discussions on the topics that I usually tend to say to just about every patient. Beyond that, let's see. I'm not going to add you to any of my followers on Instagram or Facebook because too much weird has happened there. Too many people with porn websites keep trying to follow me. So sorry guys, no. You can follow me on Ravelry. You can follow me on the Blogspot group. I would love to have you follow me. I'm just tired of weirdos trying to get me to look at things I'm not interested in. In the warm thanks department, well, very warm thanks to Potchkey, an old and well-loved friend of the podcast. Just when I was thinking I had no warm thanks this week, and how very strange, Potchkey tagged me on a posting on Instagram by Marine Naomi Art. The spelling is on the show notes. And I'm not posting it because it's not mine to post, but it's really quite lovely. It's a cartoon illustrating a way of looking at your thinking. And basically, the idea is your thoughts are like leaves floating in a river. You can stay focused on an individual leaf, or you can try to look at all the leaves at once in a detached way and let them all float by as you observe them. So, logically at this moment you say, but Gemma, what's on your hooks and needles? Well, nothing has been finished, but I'm a very happy camper because I finally gave some love to the Spectrum socks, and there's a lovely picture of them. This is by Rock and String Yarns over on Etsy, and I believe she's having a sale right now. Google her. She might just be her own website at this point. But she's having a moving sale, and she does self-striping yarns of great exactitude, which I really quite love. So I'm on the second sock, and I've gotten past the waist yarn for the heel, and I'm deeply, deeply enjoying it. The poor wild lettuce shawl is back into the timeout for no reason of its own guilt or culpability. It's because I just haven't been doing anything on it. I lost my mojo on it about 2 weeks ago, which is a shame because I'd be just about finished the thing if I hadn't. So I'll get back to it. Twin Faces vest, hooray! She sent me back the original oversized, and it's even a little bit drapey on me. But I had a think about it, and I think I've mentioned this a little bit before, that it looks like I'm going to have an extra skein of yarn on this, if not some skein and scraps. And this is old stuff. And I was going through my stash because somebody asked me on Ravelry if I could sell them some of my older worsted weight yarn, which made me go looking for my old worsted weight yarn, which brought back some memories. And some of you will or will not remember the person of whom I'm speaking, but years ago, back in the days of the Cognitive Fiber Retreat, I had a friend named Karen who had a yarn store that faced onto the street behind my original office up in Bakersfield, back when I was in private practice up there doing workers' comp. And Karen and I became good friends, and many wonderful things came out of that. Her shop was the ABCs of creative pursuits. And there's just so much that happened there. One day I walked into the shop, and she just had a bag, big garbage bag. And I said, "Oh, what's that?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know what to do with it. It's fiber." And it turned out to be fiber from a bunch of alpacas that she had helped with. And some of them had died, but they had been shorn in their good health. And she said, "I don't know what to do with these." And I said, "Well, you should get them processed." She said, "I don't want to get them processed. They're just a waste. I'm just going to throw them out or something." So I took them. And that's how I got into alpaca yarn processing. And I paid for the processing with her blessing. And I sold it at one of the cognitive fiber retreats. And another time I walked in and there was this very beautiful, obviously handmade wheel. And I said, "What's that?" She said, "Well, I was given this wheel to broker. And I might have a buyer, but the buyer has never spun, da-da-da-da-da." Well, it turned out she couldn't get the wheel spinning, so I sat down at it, and I brought it back up to spin and looked at it. It was a Jensen, and I was not familiar at the time. These are handmade wheels from the 80s and early 90s by a guy named Jerry Jensen, who has since retired. Anyway, with some hook and by crook and finagling, I bought the Jensen, and I'm so happy, and I was able, it's actually dated, I believe. Anyway, I spun on it for several years, and then it has gone on to the absolutely wonderful Lexicom, who is just a brilliant, brilliant spinster as well as crochet designer. And she has the Jensen, and I traded it, and some of you are going to gasp and faint. I traded it for an E-wheel, an Ashford. And both of us were happy with this trade because on traditional wheels with treadling, whether it's single treadle or double treadle, I get repetitive stress injuries in my feet, and you will know that I'm a runner, and that is not tolerable for me. So we're very, very happy, and this was also how I got hooked on e-wheels, because I love the Ashford. It's kind of clunky. It's not as elegant and light as a Hansen, but I love, love, love that Ashford. And so that led me into the universe of e-wheels, which changed a lot of my spinning habits. So anyway, one day I was up at Karen's store, and she said, "You said you have llamas." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Do you want alpacas?" And I said, "Well, I don't know that we have money to pay." And she said, "I'll give you mine." And she had 3 of them. And they were very elderly. And she had had more, but they died of mysterious alpaca disease. And she wanted to get rid of them. And one of them had deteriorating eyesight at the time. Anyway, we went up and took the 3 alpacas. And one of them is still living. They were very old when we got them. And we still have Jubilee, the canniest and shrewdest of the bunch. And she is out with one of our original llamas, Quechua. And they are the remainder of our camelid herd that originally we had, 4 llamas and 3 alpacas. So Karen had a lot to do with our life here on the ranch. And Karen died very sadly and very abruptly. 2014 or 15, I think. And it was a great loss. Her business failed, and she just couldn't keep it going up in Bakersfield. And so a group of us went up there, and we did our best to buy out her yarn because she had to sell it. She was kind of really needed that. So this was where I got a lot of worsted weight yarn and several different makes and several different companies. I didn't really care. I hadn't knitted a lot with worsted in those days. I was mostly knitting accessories and sock yarns and such. But I bought it mostly by color. So I bought blues and greens and a few pinks, I believe. So when this person on Ravelry wrote to me and said, "Do you have this one color? Because I can't find it. It's been discontinued by its maker." I went looking and I couldn't find the color, but I found the yarn. And it was very sad and sweet and a little bitter thinking of Karen. I miss her a great deal. She was a good friend. And she was a colleague. She did drug and alcohol counseling as well. So that was quite a loss. She was important in my little knitting world. And I looked at these yarns last night, and I did make the sweater, the retro, I can't remember what it's called, retro crochet, retro sweater. Anyway, I made a sweater out of some of it that I was teaching myself to crochet sweaters, and I ran across patterns by Megan Made with Love, and there's an H in that, Megan, Meghan, and I made one of the sweaters, which I don't think she's put on Ravelry for reasons I don't know, an oversized stripy sweater. Her original, I don't believe, was her original stripy? No, her original was stripy. But I didn't have enough of the colors to do the arms in stripes. So I did this kind of wonderful color block stripe for the body, and then the arms are a solid dark blue. And it's a wonderful, wonderful sweater. It's the first sweater I ever crocheted. And, of course, it really teaches you, if you want to crochet a sweater, I'm not talking about Tunisian. I am talking about primarily Megan Made with Love. When she does sweaters, she likes to use half double crochet. Or if you're not American, double crochet, which I love. That's my favorite stitch in crochet. And so I made a sweater out of it, and that launched me on a whole lot of projects in crocheting to make myself vests and such that I love. So meanwhile, I bought all these yarns thinking that I'm just going to make a lot of stripy sweaters or something, because there was no real big quantity. But the goal was to buy enough yarn that would match with itself so that I could use it on projects for like stripes or Fair Isle or something. Well, that was a long digression to tell you that I'm looking at the extra yarn from Twin Faces vest and thinking, I've already got this back. It's knitted, 2 skeins of it. One skein I'm definitely going to recover and use to add to Twin Faces vest. And I think I'm going to put the other skein, I will run a rescue line through it and then save it. And it will be the start of another vest. And from there, I can do striping or do Fair Isle or do a fade, but I'm going to try to use some of those stray yarns that I have lying around, because I have these lovely blues and pinks and purples, and I just looked at, I've got some Knit Picks worsted green I got in their sale on St. Patrick's Day, and so I was thinking all these would look very, very nice together. So there we go. Twin Faces vest is starting to turn into another vest. And the reason is, right now I'm wearing one of my vests, and I'm wearing my favorite vest that I've ever made. And this is the beautiful vest in Pines. That's the colorway from Malabrigo in their Rios yarn. And this is the one that I finished fairly recently, and the fit is so divine on it, and it just looks so darn good. And it's just such a beautiful colorway. So I'm looking at this vest and realizing, I put it on today because it's quite nippy out. And I realized I really love this. I finally have a well-made, well-fitted vest. And I do like me some vests with my turtlenecks on days like today where it's about 55 degrees out. Not quite cool enough for a bulky sweater with sleeves, but too cool to just be walking around in one of my turtlenecks. So there we go. That's the twin-faced vest story. So I have to I ran a rescue line through the newest version, which should fit her. And it's 2 and a fraction skeins in and about 15 inches long. So I need to pack that up and send it to her so she can try that on. But I needed a lull on the vest because it was making me just a little crazy because she was taking so long to get the other one back to me. Meanwhile, not that that makes any sense. I could have just sent her the part I have and she could have sent them both back to me. But no, that would have made sense. Meanwhile, there's the temperature blanket. I love the temperature blanket. It is getting quite long. I'll try to see if I can get a picture onto this week's show notes of it, because now we're moving into the warmer colors. So there's a big section of dark canary yellow, and we finally got a stripe in the 81 to 90 degree range. One stripe in a color called Caution. This is all in Knit Picks in their kit for the Hue Shift blanket. And it's a sport weight. And I'm liking it because we're on track now. I'm almost to a third finished. And it's so big now. It's like a lap rug, which is lovely when I crochet on it, that it just spreads across my lap. And today, on a cold, wet day, it's keeping my knees warm. We're not even hitting 50 today up here on the mountain, which is why I'm wearing a vest and enjoying a big, bright blanket on my lap. So I'm really, really quite liking it. And I'm feeling grateful for the color kit, I have to be honest, for a number of reasons. And I'm thinking about doing one for my son's bed. And I do believe for his colors, I'm looking at cream through brown through beige, and then also a dark forest green and a dark, how to describe the red, burgundy. So I'm looking at one or two greens and a burgundy, and then creams and beige or tan. So we will see, because now I finally got the bug and I've finally sort of seen how this works. And I'm not sure I need somebody to make up a kit for me, but I got to admit I was grateful for the kit. And I'm eyeing the Outpost sweater from the lovely book Harry Potter Knitting Magic, which I keep getting wrong, by Tennis Gray. And I'm kind of loving on the Outpost, which I will talk about should I get there. Currently, I am wearing, as I have said, the Green Pines vest in Malabrigo Rios. And also I have a picture of the scarf or cowl du jour, because the other day I pulled out the absolutely gorgeous country cotton shawl. That's the name of the pattern that I made years ago for one of the Camp Cognitives for number 2. Now, Camp Cognitive was a retreat where I taught people to meditate, and we went to yarn stores along the coast in Ventura. We based at a boutique hotel, and then we went up the coast to Ventura and had lunch and went to a yarn store, and then went down to Thousand Oaks. And it was absolutely delightful, but I didn't make a profit. And it was a working weekend for me. I just about broke even. So I stopped doing the Camp Cognitive mindfulness retreats because I thought to do it right, I would have to charge several $100s, which I think some people would pay. But then again, it becomes too much work. But it was fun. I did it twice and I deeply enjoyed doing it. Anyway, so lovely Laura from Dizzy Blonde Studios made us a special pair of colorways, a special colorway each year is what I'm trying to say. And in year 2 is called Bella Tramonto, which is beautiful sunset. And it is. It's absolutely gorgeous. The picture doesn't do it justice because I made it into a triangular shawl and I crocheted it with a very, very basic pattern from Lion Brand. The pattern is essentially double crochet. I believe if you're not American, you'd call it triple crochet. It's double crochet and chain. And then you just alternate that. And then, where one row you double crochet into the chain and then you chain over the double crochet. And so it alternates each row. And then about every 5 rows, I think it is, you just have a row of straight double crochet. It's a wonderful, easy shawl. And it just comes out with the best results. Also, it makes a great belly dancing hip shawl. If you're into belly dancing, and I am, it is lovely to use this pattern for a hip shawl, and I have exchanged them with other belly dancers with great joy. So I'm wearing that in the picture, but it's kind of rolled up, so you don't get to see the full effect. The color is amazing. She told us at the time she wanted to make it look like a beachy kind of sunset. So there's brown, and there's red, brown, and blue, and white. It's just an exquisite colorway, but Laura's work usually is. So on to Dizzy Blondes, and at last, I broke into the Desert Churros roving and into the latest electric eel wheel. So a little bit about the eel wheel. This is the Eel Wheel 6, I believe. And I got in on the Kickstarter years ago when I first encountered the electric eel nano. What did they used to call it? The mini, I think. And I encountered it at, I think, Stitches Southwest. Might have been where, it has to have been. And I got to play with it. And the local guild was showing it to me, the Greater LA Spinners Guild. And they said, if you ever get a chance to get in on one of Maurice's Kickstarters, you really want to. He gives value for money. And this is so true. So I want to say this was like $220. And so much came with it because so many people ordered it. It sold out. Didn't stop, but it reached its numbers required in like the first 40 minutes. And I got in there 15 minutes into it, and I was like number 270 of the buyers. And oh my gosh, I got a spinning wheel, an e-wheel, a foot pedal, a battery case that the e-wheel can rest in, and the battery goes in as well if you want to. You don't have to, because it also comes with the electrical connection and the transformer. And I said a foot pedal. I got, I think, 6 bobbins. These are all, the whole thing about Maurice's stuff, about the electric eel line, is these are printed on a 3D printer. And instead of using a conventional motor, they use circuit boards. And they're ultra, ultra lightweight. I cannot tell you, he just put in everything. Spare parts, spare driver bands. It's really amazing. It's Scotch tension. Is it Scotch tension or is it Irish tension? Wait a minute, it's Irish tension. And I just love it. I pulled it out. It was assembled in maybe 5 minutes. And I haven't spun on any wheel for quite a while now, for well over a year. And it was user-friendly, obvious, and easy to put together. It was mostly put together anyway. The battery case was already attached to it. I did not put a battery in the battery case. I actually just have it sitting on the battery case to use that as a base. There are screws. You can screw it into a wooden board if you like. There's all sorts of ways you can attach this thing to stabilize it. I have it sitting on a trunk, and it is just sitting on its battery case, which it is screwed into loosely. And that has been perfectly stable. And you can see a picture of it. And I used it on the Desert Churros roving. And I have to tell you, before I get onto the Desert Churros, this electric eel wheel 6.0 is exactly the e-wheel I wanted. This is perfect. It is very small, very light, very portable. I would feel very comfortable spinning with it on an airplane. Frankly, the Nano is great, but this is what I wanted. It's just a little bit bigger. It's quite a bit bigger than the Nano. The Nano fits in the palm of your hand. It is stable. It is big. It is still incredibly lightweight, collapsible, easily taken apart and reassembled. It's just super, and I think it will be super to travel with. Okay, and it runs beautifully. The first time it ran, I was getting some stalling, and I realized that it was me messing up the uptake. I had problems with stalling on my first Nano because the engine wasn't powerful enough. He upgraded the engine, and now it works great. This one, it stalled the first time, and I've done now like 4 bobbins it hasn't stalled since. I'm not sure what the stalling was. It was probably my tension. I was probably pulling too hard on the yarn and giving it too much resistance. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It is functioning beautifully on its electric power pack, and I can't say enough good things about it. Well done. The bobbins, I have had a difficulty filling them. Then I seem to be able to get them to load to about half capacity, and then I can't get uptake. And rather than strain the engine, I just have been loading them to half capacity. I'm doing perfectly fine. It looks like I'm getting about 2.5 ounces per bobbin, maybe a little more. And I'm fine with that. I'm looking forward to plying it. I'm going to do a 3-ply, and I'm going to really, really enjoy this. I'm getting exactly what I want out of it, a very super fine yarn. That is saying something because the Desert Churros roving. Now, Churros are a breed that were developed by the Navajo Native Americans in the Southwest, and they are rough-coated. They are not next to the skin soft. So with that in mind, we have a local breeder, and I thought it was good just to get some local stuff. She actually hand-delivered it to the house, and I need to contact her because she keeps hinting she wants to be buddies. And so this was processed by our buddies up at Morro Bay Fleece Works, I believe, or Morro Fleece Works. Anyway, the Knitmores have used them for a long time and really like them. I went with a more local processor when I was having my fleeces done, but my local processor moved to Arizona, and I haven't had anything done since they moved, so I haven't done any processing. But anyway, I'm familiar with Morro Bay's work, and it's very good. And the lady at, I think her name is Catherine, at Desert Churros is very happy with their work, and I am too. The fiber was beautifully finished into roving. There's just a little bit of debris in it, but these are desert-raised sheep. I mean, have a heart. It's a fairly long staple wool, and the processing, as I said, is beautiful. There is considerable guard hair. It is somewhat rough, but I'm having a blast, and of course this means when I finish with it, I will probably double ply it. You don't need to triple ply. It's certainly thin. What I got is very thin, which is what I'm going for. And with that in mind, I normally would triple ply it, but I'm looking at it and thinking it's a bit rough. And I have some other fur. I have dog fur. I might process and blend with it because it's a long staple and plied with a dog fur. That should keep the dog fur from having, it should tighten up around the dog fur and keep it from, coming out or coming loose. So I'm very tempted to do a tight ply on that. At any rate, this is not going to be any clothing. This is looking probably to be a rug. I may weave it or weave placemats out of it. I don't know, but I'm not thinking I want to go into spinning a lot of charro because it is very coarse. But it's beautiful stuff, and I have to recommend Desert Charro's rovings, which is what they go by on Etsy. It's just as good as it can be. The price is very reasonable, but if you look at her Etsy site, and there is a link to it in the show notes, she is making pillows and rugs out of her yarn for very good reason. And it is beautiful, beautiful stuff. She sells some of the finished product on her site, and she also sells some of her own hand spun. So it's lovely stuff, and I recommend it. But again, remember, I'm not recommending it next to the skin. It might make a pretty good outerwear sweater, like a ski sweater or something as well. But you don't want to put it next to your skin at all. So let's move on to a strategy. Good heavens, I'm verbose this week. The strategy, we're going to return to mindfulness and radical acceptance because you may remember we have reviewed the distress tolerance skills from dialectical behavioral therapy. And this is why Potchke's cartoon was so timely. Because, of course, the cartoon, as I said before, is about an individual watching a group of leaves go by on a stream, and the label says, the caption says, your thoughts are like leaves in a stream. You can focus on one thought to the exclusion of all else, or you can stand back and look at all the thoughts with no attachment and ergo no judgment, just simply allowing them to go by. This is a kind of radical acceptance. This is simply allowing your thoughts. Even if they are painful, you do not judge them, you do not judge yourself, you do not attach and let yourself suffer. You try to stand back and simply allow your thoughts to happen, allow them to be. Once you've done distress tolerance, this makes a lot of sense. That, in other words, so you're upset about something, anything, name what you want. Okay, and using that cartoon, the philosophy in that cartoon that Potchke sent, you would look at your distress and you would back away, and the things that are distressing you would become thoughts like leaves in that stream. And instead of being stuck on one leaf, you would stand back and see all of them just drifting by, and you would recognize that you have the ability to focus on one exclusively or to stand back and simply watch them without a lot of commitment and judgment. And when you can do that, you can make better decisions. You can select which leaves you want to attend to. You may take some of the leaves and just discard them. So without hurting yourself, without getting too attached to any one thought. Okay, and distress tolerance is like that. Distress tolerance implies a radical acceptance, implies that you recognize that you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are simply like the leaves floating by you, but they are not you. You can control them. You can accept or reject them. You can look at them without judgment, without engaging them, or you can choose to engage actively. And so that is kind of the ultimate radical acceptance, that these things just are. They are not you, but they are going to happen to you. And with that comes an understanding that some of these things you have to attend to. Some of these things may hurt you, but that doesn't mean it's your fault. And that doesn't mean you blame yourself. In fact, blaming may actually be very disabling as you try to deal with some of the more difficult challenges. You may realize that you have contributed to some of the problematic thoughts, and you have to accept that as well. You have to acknowledge your part in a problem and act to remedy it. So all of this that I'm describing, this is like if you stand back from everything I'm saying and look at it, you're looking at mindfulness. Mindfulness is being right here, right now, looking at your overall situation and saying that you are in charge of it, you have control over your thinking and over what you're doing in this moment. Mindfulness means, though, in this cartoon where you're looking at a stream and the stream is filled with leaves, and each leaf is a thought of yours. Mindfulness is you're only looking at the part of the stream directly in front of you. In other words, the stream that has already gone by, you probably can't reach the leaves anymore. You can't reach the past. You can't reach what's already happened. You can't change it. And the stream that is about to pass you, you really don't know. You can guess what might be in the stream. Sure, there's going to be some leaves, but you really can't say much more about that. That predicting the future beyond a certain point is really non-productive. So radical acceptance, it's like looking at all the leaves and realizing these belong to you and some of them are a problem, and you don't judge or blame or hurt yourself. You simply choose to act productively, picking out which leaves you need to work on. Mindfulness is like looking at a slice of that stream and recognizing that some of the leaves have gone by and are beyond your reach, and you really can't do anything except try to remember to learn something from them, but you can't change them. And at the same time, not predicting too much or catastrophically what's coming down the stream. So when we teach distress tolerance skills, we start by teaching mindfulness and radical acceptance. Then we teach the skills. Then we return, because now we have a bigger way to look at what we know about distress tolerance. And distress tolerance is all about that mindfulness and radical acceptance, that I have to manage my problems. Many of them will not be my fault. They are challenges, and as long as I stay focused on this moment, as long as I am safe in this moment, I am okay, and I have time to manage my challenges. So, put a lid on it. I put a link to Blaze Pizza because they have keto crusts. Okay, this is true. Every time we go anywhere now, I'm looking for the Blaze Pizza so I can have pizza. It was about 3 years before I had my first Blaze Pizza after I abjured all carbs and pizzas, at least carbs in that form. And the pizza crust at Blaze is their typical pizza size, which I don't know how many inches. I want to say it's 10 inches. And they charge you $4 extra for it, which I'm perfectly happy to pay. It is not vegan. It has eggs in it, as keto bakery stuff will, to hold it together. That's one great advantage. And it's okay. That Blaze is a fast-fired pizza business. That is, they use an extremely thin crust with thin layers of toppings on them. And so it cooks very rapidly in a very hot pizza oven. And I love them. They're reasonably priced. I'm trying to think. Now, with all my toppings, I think I paid like $12 or $13 for one pizza. And that's a dinner, and I'm happy to do it. I get a thing called an Art Lover's Pizza. They will add a lot of things for free to it. Many of their recipe pizzas, like their special recipes, don't have sauce on them, for example. But if you say, please add red sauce, they will. And they'll add different cheeses to it. So I had them add mozzarella and feta to this. And they didn't charge. And I had them add full cloves of roasted garlic. The Art Lovers has, I think, chopped garlic on it. Yeah, I was sweating garlic for 48 hours, man. I love these things. It is really nice to be keto these days. It is okay to be diabetic. There are a lot of restaurants now that cater to us. I will tell you, if you're keto and you're in a restaurant, give up on things like cauliflower crust on your pizza. I know California Pizza Kitchen is doing that. You can't eat that. They're not keto. Nice try. I mean, you can if you want to, but it's not keto. There is a difference. I've had the California crust. I think it's gluten-free, but it's not keto. It definitely has carbs. So if you're eating out, you want to look at things on the appetizer menu that aren't deep fried. That's kind of your rescue. The beloved and I went to a Mexican restaurant today, and we had Mexican hot wings. I am willing to bet, well, actually, if there's barbecue sauce, they're going to have some sugar in them. These don't have barbecue sauce. Our local Mexican place literally flash fries these without breading them and throws a liberal coating of hot sauce on them. And they're delicious. So that with blue cheese dressing is a great keto treat. So if you're going to go to restaurants, you might be surprised how many places have keto options that they know are keto. And they'll tell you if you ask, do you have anything keto? And you have to be careful because they may not know what you know. So they may tell you in good faith that something is keto, like the cauliflower crust, and it's not. So you have to know your stuff. But many places now do have named keto options. And I really recommend Blaze Pizza's keto crusts. And if you're looking for keto, just remember the appetizer menu and the salad menu are your friends. Aw, shoot. Well, in Bakersfield, I did not run because I came home from Big Bear where I'd been running on asphalt and my knees were just a little uncomfortable. They weren't really sore. So I'm resting my knees, which means I'm going to go back to the 4th week of the program, which I completed, but I want to go back to it because I don't feel like I completed it well. And I want to do it on dirt when my knees aren't sore. And at my age, I've never had knee problems, so I'm not quite sure what is real pain and what is not. But I am enjoying running, and I'm enjoying week 4. And you have to be real. I'm running and walking. So I'm alternating. I'm up to about 18 minutes of running, I believe. But, not bad for 60 and starting over. This leads me to say I've been talking about your gear from the bottom up for your exercise bout. And, of course, I talked about socks last time and shoes the week before. And I want to point out one thing that doesn't get a lot of airtime and should is the other thing you might put on your legs, which is support gear. That there are a variety of knee braces and other supports you can use that you may use if you're a runner or if you're biking or even if you're swimming. It depends on what you're doing in which sport. In my time, I've never wrapped my knee in any kind of spandex support. I know people who do, but you can get tubes. And if the knee thing bothers me enough, I probably will try like a knee tube made out of spandex or elastic to hold my knees and see if that helps. There is also a band you put around, and this may be more realistic. I have problematic iliotibial bands, which is the tendon that runs up the outer side of your legs and kind of keeps your legs from collapsing inwards. It sort of holds them out from center. And that's like the last thing you damage. That you have to damage pretty much everything else on your leg before your ITBs go out. But mine did back in my marathoning days, and they still are acting up. And that may be what I'm looking at here. One of the ways to curtail that is there is a tight band you put around your knee right below the kneecap, and it kind of holds that together. So I might be looking at those. But you want to be really attentive to this. If you're having leg problems, you want to look at supports, okay? The other thing this includes would be arch supports. And if you're a runner, there's tons of these. You can buy them right off the wall in most sporting goods stores, and you can trim them with your scissors to make them fit. You buy them your shoe size and rough size, and then you trim them down with scissors. I am a big fan of Roadrunner Sports, as I constantly say, and the link is once again in the show notes, because Roadrunner will take your shoe size and they'll fit you for shoes, and they'll have you stand on this machine with a sort of spongy surface, and it takes a mold of your feet, and you get perfectly made arch supports for your specific feet. This costs more. The off-the-wall things can be anything from $5 to $30. These things cost between $85 and $100. Because I have the VIP membership, $85 for me. And as I've said before, these arch supports, the last time I bought them, I believe they have lasted me something unreal, like 10 years. Oh, wow. Well, let's see. I was running, before I started the job, from Hades. So I was running in early 2016. I did the Disney races in 2015. I had to have bought these things. Oh, the fitted ones from Roadrunner. When did I buy those? I bought them in the store. Probably something like 2010, 2011. And I just got rid of them this year. Not because they gave out, but because my foot shape was very different because I've lost so much weight since I had these made. And my foot seems to have grown a bit too. So I highly recommend the custom-made ones from Roadrunner Sports if you can get them if you're in California. If you can't, sorry about that. Finally, the other thing you should know about is KT tape. There are various brands of this. KT is the original. It's kinesthesiology tape. Kinesthesiology therapy tape, KT. KT tape is a really user-friendly tape. I can't remember if it's an inch thick or an inch and a half wide and it has different colors. And it's latex, well, I don't think it's latex, it's spandex. It's something non-allergenic. And you wrap it around any part of your body that needs support. So I've seen people with their elbows taped, and their wrists taped. I used to wrap it around my ankles to support me because I had Achilles tendonitis and also plantar fasciitis. So I'd wrap it around my foot and wrap it around my ankles. Since I lost the 65 pounds, I haven't needed to use KT, but it is another option I'm looking at for the knees that I have a lot of it left over, and I may try wrapping my knees with KT first. But if you're having any leg problems, pain, anything like that, you need to realize there are support tools out there like KT tape, arch supports, and then various wrap types that you can put around your knees, around your ankles to help support you. And KT tape is incredibly versatile. You can use it for problems with your wrists, with carpal tunnel, and your tennis elbow and your shoulders. Okay, so there you go. On to the fluffy books. Well, in the fluffy book list, I am still reading Zen and the Art of Writing. I actually haven't read much of it since I read the first chapter. And I keep meaning to get back to it, but I keep getting distracted. I finished an Evan Colfer book, which I'm not going to bother to tell you about because I love Evan Colfer. This is a guy who wrote the Artemis Fowl series, and they're brilliant. And now he's got a new series about Artemis's little brothers. So they're the Fowl Twins books, and they're really smart and really clever. This was called High Fire, and, it's kind of a thumbs down. I actually skipped pages because this was like reading a teenage boy who's a really good writer. All sorts of violence and damage and aggression and, male genitalia jokes. I was really let down. I guess Colfer just needed an out for some part of his psyche, but I didn't enjoy it. Meanwhile, I finished listening to The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde, and I started its sequel on Audible, which is called Lost in a Good Book, and it is living up to The Air Affair. I had forgotten how much good fun the Thursday Next series is, and they're wonderful fun. So I'm in the middle of Lost in a Good Book. Meanwhile, I'm still reading A Wicked Conceit in the Lady Darby series. I wanted to tell you this week. No, I don't want to tell you anything. I was going to tell you about Sebastian Sincere, but I think I may have told you about him last week, so I'm not going to bother. Let's move on. Something I really like. I should have said this years ago, but I'll say it now. The food applications for my phone. It's hard to find a silver lining to the disaster that the COVID pandemic has been. And I feel very weird talking about any good thing that came out of it because I'm very aware that a lot of us came out of it missing family members. And I'm in that place of gratitude that none of my patients died from it, but I wish I could say their families had been unscathed. So you have to take it with a grain of salt when I say, well, some things changed, and it's not all regrets for me because I realize how incredibly lucky and privileged I've been to be able to say that. So yeah, from the important to the absolutely absurd, I've learned that I no longer need to go into restaurants, and I no longer have a great desire to. There's a few places that, because of the memories, I enjoy going. But frankly, most of the time, I'm very happy eating in a hotel room, eating in my car, or taking it home. And so with that in mind, I have really learned to love the apps to pick up food at my favorite restaurants. There are things that you can't order well online. Sushi, like anything with a specialty tilt to it. And there are experiences that, like smorgasbord, buffets. There are, experiences like that, sushi bars, with the little boats floating around, all that really crazy fun stuff. There are experiences that are probably going away and that I will always miss. But I have to admit that I have learned to love just ordering something on a food app, driving up, letting them know I'm there, and picking it up or having it brought out to my car. And I have to admit, this has helped a lot. I'm in a small town, and the only accessible fast food is a McDonald's, which I object to, but I have to admit that there have been times where in the middle of the quarantine just to get out. I ordered a cheeseburger, no bun, drove to McDonald's, and ate whatever animal was sitting in that box with cheese on it, and was grateful for it. So with the hotel life, I have really learned to appreciate this. At the same time, I'm kind of enjoying online menus and all that. That when you can't get to an app, you go to the online menu and you order. This has been a really nice way to keep some of the restaurants that my family likes in business through the pandemic, to support them. And it's actually safer and more hygienic. What can you say? So, strangely, something I really like, food apps. The apps where you order your food. By the way, I can't speak to things like food delivery services such as DoorDash or whatever they're called this week. We can't get that. We're out in the sticks. So we're not going to get food delivered. I have heard so many stories about how the drivers are getting ripped off and stuff. So all I can say is the one thing I have learned is we made a commitment to tip generously during this time, because it was not just about keeping the restaurants in business. It was about recognizing that the wait staff are also not getting tips and not getting a lot of the financial support they were getting during the restaurant days. And I grant you it's easy to be wait staff and just carry things to the front counter in bags instead of waiting tables, but they have families too. Okay, so on to the blather. Well, this has been a weird week. We knew this was coming. This isn't a surprise, but of course, we got back from Big Bear, you may remember, over a week ago now. 2 Fridays ago, I came back from Big Bear. And meanwhile, we knew my husband was getting his second COVID shot of Moderna this past Friday in Bakersfield, which is about a 2-hour drive for me from home. So the question was, what would happen if he got sick? That I didn't want him up there alone. And there was also a question of what to do with my son, because I'm working all day and my son can't be in the room when I'm seeing patients. And I just took a week off, so I can't skip on my patients. Anyway, the way this worked out was we rented 2 hotel rooms in Bakersfield. I went up on Thursday because I didn't have to see patients till 2 in the afternoon. So I drove up Thursday morning, got the first room, and saw my patients in the first room, finished at 9 o'clock that night, was just dead exhausted, went to bed. The next morning got up, picked up the key for the second room. The boys arrived, late morning, I think. And they went right over and the beloved got his shot. And he got a sore arm. And he came to the hotel. Unfortunately, I was between patients, gave him the room key, threw him out, saw patients that evening. And then we were all exhausted Friday night. And my husband was very tired, but that was the only side effect he had except for the sore arm, which was very nice for him. So he was good. And he was glad not to drive home. And so we all slept there Friday night. We were all tired and grouchy. It was a bit of a shame. Dinner wasn't what it could have been, but I did get a Blaze pizza. So did the husband. The beloved son got the McDonald's he wanted. He was very happy about that. So we went to bed and passed out. And then they left Saturday morning, and we turned over the keys of the second room. And then I stayed through Saturday because I still had to see patients from 9 to 5. And the nice thing, I was alone in Bakersfield at this point, which, once the boys have been, it's always terribly lonely. Like, I was fine Thursday when I was there by myself, but once they show up, it's hard when they leave. Big Bear being the exception. I needed that time. I really did. But now that I'm kind of rehabilitated after the week and 5 days in Big Bear, I really missed them terribly Saturday. And one of my patients, my last patient of the day, was sick because she got her second shot. So I didn't have to see her after all. So I went and I got a reflexology massage, which is the first time in years. And it wasn't a particularly good job, but, I believe in tipping. And I came home, and the brilliant thing was I passed right out. It really, really tired me out. And I had a Blaze pizza after the massage. I really was happy. And then I went home and passed out. And so yesterday morning I woke up early in Bakersfield, finished packing, threw it in the car, and came home. And so now I'm on my weekend. And it was just a lovely trip. The hotel is very inexpensive in terms of using points from my Marriott account, which surprised me. It It's a great hotel. I don't know why it was so cheap. I mean, their hotels are usually 25,000 points a night. This thing was 5,000 points a night. I cannot figure out what that was about. But it was lovely, and I had a great room, and I had a great 3 days up there, and came home happy. So it was weird. It was like having another slight vacation. And it was strange to be there because I was across the street from where I used to work back in the day, early in this podcast, when I worked for the Mallard. And it was so strange to be standing there looking up at the Stockdale Tower and having all those memories. But I like Bakersfield. And I worked there, I don't know, probably about 4 years. And it was great. I enjoyed it and saved up a lot of hotel guest points and was able to use them for hotels in Fiji the 2 years that we went. I mean, it's really nice to be back there. And Bakersfield has had some good growth, and it's a nice area, the Stockdale end of Bakersfield. Not all of Bakersfield is quite that nice, but it was really pleasant to be there again. And it was kind of strange and happy, and I realized I have some good memories there, so that was good. In the meantime, speaking of my previous vacation, I realized that I should make my vacation plans instead of letting them happen. And that brought me up to the issue of Sunnybank. And I decided not to do Sunnybank this year for mostly political reasons. There's been tension, and it's about a 50-50 split, which is pretty good for conservative northern New Jersey to even have that much support for the more liberal point of view. But I just said this year there were compelling reasons I didn't want to deal with it, and so I'm not going to go to Sunnybank. So that left me open to laying in plans for around my birthday, which is early September. So I put in for vacation, and I'm very pleased and looking forward to that. So this year I'm going to have an early September vacation, and that would give me leeway as well to reserve some Christmas time. So that's about all that is happening. You can go see pictures of my hotel and the hotel grounds. It's a very pretty hotel, and there's the Stockdale Tower where I used to work. And also, I did a brisk walk in Bakersfield because I couldn't run, but that was good. I went out for a 1 mile walk for about 15 minutes and really enjoyed it. And finally, of course, Minerva gets the last word. There's a picture of Minerva as a little scrawny kitten touching noses with Eleanor. And that is in honor of the fact that we are at the 3rd anniversary of my little feline darling's birthday and her gotcha day, which were way too close together for her good health, and yet she survived. And it explains a lot about why she's so poorly socialized, that she was taken from her mother far too young and spayed far too young. But the girl is tough as nails, and she survived it all. But I keep laughing when I look at this picture because she is just all legs and tail, and then this little tiny body slung between them and a big head. And she's leaning up to sniff noses with Eleanor, who found her disgusting then and finds her disgusting now. I have always found it funny that cats regard dogs with this kind of cool detachment at best, whereas dogs seem to regard cats as simply disgusting, like just weird and creepy. So happy 3rd gotcha day, my dear Minerva, and happy 3rd birthday, my long-leggedy little kitten who grew into the queen of the house, whom none of us dare disobey. And we've come a long way. Since I came home from Bakersfield, she's been cuddling me like crazy. I came home and I picked her up, which is not allowed, and I held her against me, and I simply head bonked with her, and then I rubbed my chin all over her head and neck. And instead of swatting me or biting me, she purred her brains out and then indicated she would like to get on the floor. And ever since, she's been running up to me and trying to sit in my lap and cuddle with me. But she can only take so much of that before her inner Minerva-ness takes over. But nonetheless, I can't imagine life without her. I will always have a big hole in my heart shaped like Fearless. But Minerva is a good cat, and she's been a wonderful home companion for me, and I have to admit, dog woman that I am, Minerva's kind of my darling. Who else can climb on the bed and cuddle with me? Okay, so having said all that, I hope everybody's getting their vaccines. We're so happy, both of us, my husband and I, are vaccinated. We are really holding on with bated breath till we can get our son vaccinated. He's just turned 15, but we know it's coming pretty soon. Please, everybody, get your vaccines if you can. And don't forget all the rest of it. Please wear your mask, wash your hands, social distance, and most of all, please stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.